This is the story of Aino, daughter of Ahtu, sister of Youkahainen. One day, Aino went to the forest to gather leafy birch twigs for the sauna, and on the way back she met the old singer Vainamoinen, the water god, who had been watching her for some time. And he said to her, "You should be my wife, sweet girl, and just for me wear the silver cross on your breast, the beads at your neck. Only for me put your hair in a braid and bind it with silk. We shall be married." But Aino said, "Not for you, nor for anyone, do I wear the silver cross at my breast, bind my hair with silk. I can live in simple clothes. I grow well on plain bread, with my good mother and my kind father." And she pulled the cross from her breast, shook the beads from her neck, tore the silk from her hair, and dropped her gold rings in the forest, and went weeping back to the farm. At the farm, her father was in the window, making a handle for an axe. He said, "Why are you weeping, my child?" "Oh, this is why I'm weeping, father. The silver cross came loose from my neck. The copper beads fell from my belt and were lost in the forest." Her brother was at the gateway, carving a yoke for an ox. "Why are you so sad, sister?" "I have reason to be sad. The gold rings were lost in the forest. The rings fell from my fingers." The sister was in the house weaving a golden belt. "Why are you crying, my sister?" "I am crying because I lost the red silk and the blue ribbons from my hair in the forest." Her mother was in the shed, skimming cream from the milk. "Why are you crying, girl?" And she told her mother the truth. "Oh, mother, there are dark reasons. I went to the forest for birch twigs, and I met old Vainamoinen, the great one, and he said to me, 'You should be my bride, and just for me, wear the silver cross at your breast, bind your hair with silk. We shall be married.' Well, I tore the cross from my breast, threw away the silk from my hair, and told him that I can live in simple clothes. I grow well with plain bread, with my kind mother and my good father." But her mother said, "Don't weep, daughter, fruit of my youth. Don't complain. This would be a good match. For a month you should eat melted butter. You'll grow smoother than others. Another month, eat pork. You'll grow sleeker than all. The third month, eat cream pancakes. You'll be the fairest of all. Go to the hut on the hill and look in the finest chest there, and you'll find 6 golden belts and 7 blue skirts, woven by Moon Daughter and finished off by Sun Daughter, that I gained from them long ago. Put on the best of them. Put on a shirt of fine linen, a top of white lawn, fine silk stockings, fancy leather shoes, beads at your neck, gold rings on your fingers, gold bracelets on your hands, and you'll come back to us the sweetness of the family. You'll walk the lanes like a flower. You'll roam juicy as a raspberry, more graceful than all." Well, that's what she said, but the daughter didn't pay attention to her. She went out into the farmyard, moaning and complaining. "Oh, better that I had not been born in these dark hours in this joyless world. Or better I'd died a 6th night old, been lost an 8th day old. I wouldn't have needed much. A scrap of linen, a tiny field edge, a few tears from my mother, less from my father, probably none at all from my brother." She wept one day. She wept too. The third day her mother came to her and said, Daughter, daughter, why are you weeping and complaining so? The reason I'm weeping, mother, is because you have pledged me, your own child, to care for an old man, to gladden an aged man, to comfort a dodderer, to be a shelter for a nook haunter. Better if you bid me go below the deep billows, to be sister to the whitefish with all the fish my brothers, and lie there on the black mud. Better that than to care for an old man, one who trips over his own stockings, one who falls over a dry twig. But she went to the hut on the hill and looked in the Finnish chest, and there were the 6 gold belts and the 7 blue skirts, and she put on the finest of them, gold on her brows, red silk on her hair, fine shoes on her feet, and she stepped out into the forest. Through a grove, across a glade, she roamed far, she roamed over the swamps, roamed to the bloomy backwoods. And as she went, she said, there is an ache in my heart, a pain in my head, but it wouldn't be worse if I was cut loose from all these sorrows. Now is the time for me to leave the world. Now is the time to meet with death. Mother wouldn't weep for me. Father wouldn't take it ill. Sister's cheeks would not be wet. Brother would not shed tears. So I rolled in the deep billows down to the fishy sea upon the black mud. And she roamed one day, she roamed 2. And the 3rd day she came to the reedy lake shore. And as night fell, she wept all evening on a wet rock by the broad bay end. Early in the morning, she looked out to the misty headland and saw 3 maidens bathing. The bright girl Aino will be the 4th. So she cast her shirt on a willow, hung her skirt on the aspen, her shoes on the wet rock, her stockings on the plain ground, her beads on the sandy shore, and her rings lost amongst the shingle. Out in the bay there was a bright rock, golden in the morning sun, and she swam out there, rested on the rock, then let herself slide into the water. She said, waters of the sea, be so much blood of mine. Fishes of the sea, so much flesh of mine. Driftwood on the shore, be the poor one's ribs. Grasses of the shore, her tousled hair. And that was the end of the bright girl, Aino. Now, who will take the news by word of mouth back to the farm? The bear will take the news. But the bear met up with some cows and had some other work to do. The wolf then. But the wolf found himself among a flock of sheep and was led astray. The fox can take the news back to the farm. But the fox ran into a gaggle of geese and was quite distracted. So who can take the news by word of mouth back to the farm? The hare. The hare said, the news will not be lost with me. And so he went, the long ear lolloping all the way back to the farm. When he got there, he went to the threshold of the sauna, and the sauna was full of young women with their birch twigs, and they teased him, saying, sly one, if you come to be roasted in our pans, to be meals for the mistress, suppers for the master, snacks for the sons and daughter. The hare said, maybe the devil will boil in your pans some day. I have come with sad news. The bright girl Aino is lost. The silver belt has gone down to the depths, down in the fishy sea, upon the black mud. The mother started weeping, the tears rolling down her face. Don't, luckless mother, she said, ever in this world. Don't lull your daughters, or force your children to marry against their will, as I, a thoughtless mother, pressed my daughter. The tears fell from her blue eyes to her chin, from her chin to her breast, from her breast to the fine hems of her skirt, from her skirt to her red-topped stockings, down over her leather shoes to the ground. And on the ground the waters formed 3 rivers, and each river 3 rapids, and above the rapids a crag, and on the crags grew birch trees, and in the birches 3 golden cuckoos. And the first cuckoo cried, "Love, love, love, love." The second called, "Bridegroom, bridegroom." And the third called, "Joy, joy, joy, joy." The first one called, "Love, love, love, love," for 3 months over the loveless girl lying in the sea. The second called, "Bridegroom, bridegroom," for 6 months over old Vainamoinen, waiting and longing. And the third cried, "Joy, joy, joy, joy," for the rest of her life, over the mother without joy, weeping all her days. She said, "When the cuckoo is calling, my heart is throbbing. Tears come to my eyes, roll down my cheeks, thicker than peas and fatter than beans. My life passes, my frame grows old, my whole body is blighted when I hear the spring cuckoo." Now you might think that's the end of the story of Aino, but it is not. The news was spread abroad. When it reached steady old Vainamoinen, he took it badly. He wept evenings, he wept afternoons and mornings, because the bright one had gone down below the billows. And he stepped sadly to the shore of the sea, and he said to the dreamer, "Tell me now, dreamer, your dream and your vision. Where does the wave wife, Artu's fine daughter, lie?" And the dreamer told his dream. He said, "Out in the bay, by the misty headland's tip, down below the billows, down on the black mud, the wave wife lives, in a narrow space by the bright rocks." Well, when Vainamoinen heard that, he took himself to the boatyards, looked out his fishing lines, sharpened his hooks. He paddled out across the broad bay to the misty headland's tip, and there he started to fish. He fished 1 day, he fished 2, and on the 3rd day he hooked a big fish and hauled it into the boat. He said, "That's a fish I've never seen the like of. Too smooth for a whitefish, too pale for a trout, rather grizzled for a pike, too mild for a sea salmon." Vainamoinen had a silver-tipped knife, and he thought he would cut up the fish for meals at morning, for salmon lunches and big suppers. But as he turned to reach the knife, the fish flared out of the boat. The bright sea salmon flashed into the water. It beat its tail and rose up out of the water head and shoulders and showed itself as the fine girl, Aino. And she said, "Oh, you old Vainamoinen, I was not to be a fish to be cut up for meals at morning, salmon lunches and big suppers." So Vainamoinen said, "Well, what were you to be?" "Well, I was to be a fine hen tucked under your arm, a lifelong companion sitting on your knee, to set up your bed, to lay out your pillows and to clean your small hut. I was to be the one to sweep the floor, Bring in the fire, kindle the light, make your bread, lay out your meal, and bring your beer mug. But I was not that, and I am not a sea salmon, a perch of the deep billow. I was the fine girl, Aino, Artu's peerless daughter, who you hunted all your life, longed for all your days. Oh, you wretched Vainamoinen, you foolish old man, you had no right to claim the bright girl Aino. Vainamoinen said with his head down, "Oh, Youkahainen's sister, come but once again." But she didn't come again, not ever again. She vanished from the surface, down amongst the bright rocks, to live free, sister to the whitefish, and with all the fish her brothers.
Vanha vuori Vainamoinen vesti vuorella venettä. Kolkutteli Kalevala, kilpesty kirveskiveen. Polvehe pojan polote, vanha vuori Vainamoinen. Läppi päähän etsimään veren turvan tukkia.